Hi guys, my name is Japanesetutor, and today I'm going to teach you how to become an effective teacher and an effective coach. So for this, I would love some responses or some questions, because I really think that this is a topic that is not really talked about here on YouTube, and it is a skill set that you really have to try and fail, and then try again and fail again, and then succeed after you try again. I don't think there are a lot of people who are born great teachers, but I think a lot of good teachers now are made through trial and error. That said, who am I? Why am I teaching you? And so let me just preface the whole conversation. My name is Japanesetutor. I teach chess online. I've taught chess all over the world for about 13 years now to over 5,000 people, 5,000 different students over that at this point. And one of the things that I love seeing is that face or sound that people make when they finally get something. That aha moment, like, I get it. Their eyes go bright. Like, it's amazing. I love that feeling. And I live for that moment and strive to get that reaction in every single lesson. Okay. Unfortunately, I am only one person, and I cannot teach everyone by myself. As much as I would love to do that, I just can't. But I do want everyone to be an effective teacher. I want to make people feel confident in the way that they're teaching. So this is kind of where this idea came up for this coaching clinic or this coach university. I believe that we all want to be great at what we do, and this show is here to help you guys, and I'm here to help. Again, just comment down below if you have any questions, or go to the Discord. It's linked down below as well, or find it. And here I'm going to share my knowledge of teaching and different techniques that I picked up over the years. But to do that, I have to explain what an effective teacher is. And for some teachers, this might be redundant. The material that I cover in the show might be something that you're already doing, but I do believe that if you see it from a different perspective or in a different point of view, that was redundant itself in and of itself, these things will only benefit you. Okay, so please, if you have any questions, and this is being recorded live either in the Chess TV chat or in the Chess or my Twitch chat, ask questions and I will try to answer them. And yeah, thank you so much for being here, and let's get started. So what is an effective teacher? What is that? So an effective teacher for me is somebody who can take something, break it down into its core elements, and then teach to the student, and then that student gets it almost as well as the teacher does. And the skills needed for an effective teacher or effective teaching involve more than just expertise in the academic field or in the field of study that you have. You kind of have to be able to interact with people and help them understand in a way that they can't just get from a book, right? You have to give them some oomph. And it's not an easy job. Although there are many different ways to teach and teach effectively, and good instructors have different, great qualities about them, that I think the core thing is that they're prepared. They set clear and fair expectations, have a positive attitude, are patient with students, and assess their own teaching on a regular basis. Not only that, they're able to adjust their teaching strategies to fit both the students and the material, recognizing that different students learn in different ways. And as a teacher or as a coach, it is your job to be a role model for these students. And you're the role model who sets the tone for the class. If you're able to show enthusiasm and commitment and just a love of what you do, your students are going to be more likely to reciprocate that. They're going to be more likely to say, hey, I feel the passion and I want to give it back, right? And if on the other hand you're kind of negative and you're unprepared, or impatient with your students and with the content, then your students are going to give that back to you. So I just want to talk about some of these qualities that you should maintain as a teacher. And the first thing is being positive, right? Keep your students engaged with a positive attitude. It is a must. People come to you to learn. They don't come to you for a bad story. And one of the most important things I learned as a coach over the years is that you are an actor. No matter what is going on in your life, if you are in front of a student, everything is perfect and you keep it going. Of course, you can have personal relationships with your students, and obviously that's fine. But outside is outside. And when you're coming in front of a student, in front of a class, it's only the material at hand. Which is why I think that you should really show your love for the game, or your love, in this case, for chess, but just in general, your love for whatever you're teaching. Teaching is most effective when students are motivated by the desire to learn, rather than by, let's say, grades or like a rating, right? Like if you're saying, hey, you have to get to 1,000, and you can only impress me if you get 1,000, that student, if they can't reach 1,000, they're going to be depressed. Instead of that, maybe backtrack and say, let's do this as a team, right? Think of your students and yourself as one team. And learning and teaching are challenging, but it doesn't mean that you can't have fun. And make it a game and say, hey, let's get you to 900, right? Let's get to 800. Let's say you have a student that's 500 rated. Let's get you to 600. Let's do it. Let's do it together. Let's find out the way to be good, right? Then the students is more encouraged, and even if they fail, they know it's a process. And I believe that you should be as transparent as possible. Okay? I think you should be as transparent as possible with your students. Say, hey, this is going to be hard work. Right in the beginning, set the tone for the class. This is going to be easy. Not easy, sorry. This is going to be hard. I don't know why I said easy. This is going to be hard. And you are going to get out of chess what you put into it. And this is why I love the game. I love teaching the game. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. Okay? And set that expectation for them to work hard. Because chess is a lot of work. There's a lot of things that you have to remember. There's a lot of things that you have to think through. And, it's a lot of logic that they have to manipulate. And, sometimes reconstruct it, right? As we get stronger and stronger, we have to say, okay, whatever worked before is not working now. We have to relearn things. But one of the things about being positive is that you have to stay focused. Do not be afraid to be creative and innovate, right? Because sometimes for teachers, we get stuck in this realm. Well, I had a class and my student learned this correctly. So why should I ever change the way I teach this one subject, right? And we have to identify a few things, and we have to kind of understand stuff as learners as well, that people learn differently. What works for one student doesn't necessarily work for every student. And while you might have a great lesson, if that student doesn't really get what you are putting down, right? They don't understand it. Then what you should do is try to innovate that lesson and say, hey, you know what? This didn't work, but here's maybe some homework. And I think the job of a coach is to go above and beyond. And I think we might be on Just TV now. So hi, Just TV. Allow yourself to be enthusiastic and find ways to let the students see what is interesting about chess. Right? Just help them understand why you love it as well. And one of the important things when you are teaching, actually, I'm going to take this off. Thank you so much for the people who are here and being amazing. So let's keep it going. Sorry. And one of the things that coaches should be is you should be prepared. You should know the material beforehand, right? And this is gonna take anywhere from 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to about an hour, right? If you do not know the subject, right? If you don't know the ins and outs of the exchange French, by the way, horrible. I'm putting that out there. But if you don't know the ins and outs of the exchange French, then it is your job, if your student wants to learn that and they are having trouble with it, for you to go above and beyond and prepare something for them. And it's not just, hey, I play this. Maybe show an example of famous games that happen in the exchange French where white wins, and then show where black wins, and see the gives and takes of the opening, right? And from there, say, what should white do in this position? What should black do in this position? And what are they going for? Right? Give them the tools to succeed. And it might not be as easy as that. They might say, hey, I have trouble in rook endgames. Okay, well, if you don't know any rook endgames off the bat, you might know how to win them, but it might be worth it to maybe buy an endgame book and say, hey, Dvoretsky, what do you have to say, right? Don't reinvent the wheel. There's so much knowledge for chess that reinventing the wheel is just going to make you stressed as a human being, right? We can correctly use other people's work in our field, right? Like Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual, he just came out with the 5th edition, actually, is a beautiful book, and it's the Endgame Bible. Why not take from that amazing resource and then maybe, hey, go buy it yourself because it's a great book, right? And you should take from that book and say, hey, I like the way Dvoretsky explained it. Okay, great. And we'll get back to, because Dvoretsky is usually considered to be a very hard piece of chess literature to digest. So we'll get back to that as well. But, you say, okay, and then you go maybe into Patenko's book, about endgames, and then say, okay, I really like the way he explained this. And maybe take about an hour and then make something for them. And then, take a couple examples, maybe from your games, maybe from famous games. I really like other people's games. I don't like putting my games into my lessons. I just feel like that's cheating. But do what you must. But I think the thing about being prepared is you have to be able to review key concepts and ideas. And if you're unclear about them, particularly if it's been a while since you worked with the topics, then go ahead and restudy them or relearn them. Right? Also, it's really easy. Like, I even have one here, an outline. Write an outline with the things that you want to talk about, so that you don't go off course or off track, because it's very easy to go off on a tangent and then not be able to finish your whole lesson, right? Positive prepared. The next one is organized. So the next one is have a plan for what you want to teach. Your job as a coach is to illustrate key points and essential content and context. And you're going to help the students take all of what they're seeing, what they're being exposed to, and you're going to give them the tools to digest that information, right? Because we're not all born with the knowledge of knowing the square of the pawn or opposition, right? It's something that we have to learn, like distant opposition, right? I wasn't born knowing that. It's not critical for my life. But we have to give them the tools, right? And also remember that you are never going to have enough time to teach everything. So it is your job to understand what can you teach in the allotted time, right? That's part of being organized. What can you teach? What can you bring? And what can you show in, let's say you have an hour, what can you show in 40 minutes? With some examples that might take an hour. And you know what? If the examples might take a little bit longer, you can assign those examples as homework as well, which is what I love to do. Do You give them a small piece of it, you help them understand it in the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then you have them do it. They have to show you that they understand. And if they don't understand, then great, we can go through it together. And some people learn through examples and say, oh, I get it. I get why it doesn't work this way, but it works that way. And show them examples when it doesn't work and when it does work, and just really give them the tools. And you want to explain ideas so that students are able to build on material that they have already mastered. What does that mean? Well, if you're working with someone who has just learned the pieces, then I think it's a waste of time almost to teach them how to play the Sicilian Najdorf or show them a 17 move 17 novelty in the Smith-Morra Gambit. Right? You have to build up to that point. Don't just focus on what you'll be teaching today. Focus over like the long term. Okay, what do I want them to learn? And then set a plan. This goes back to being prepared. Set a plan and a work plan to be the amazing teacher that you can be, and don't make sure that you don't go off track. Now, I want this to be as clear as possible, because the next thing is about being clear with your students. What you want to do when you're teaching, and especially hard subjects like Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual, what you want to do is you want to take these hard concepts and break them down into their very, very core elements and give them the most basic of things. Right? If we're talking about the floating pawn structure, right? Floating pawn structure, what is that? Well, the floating pawn structure, it's a very simple concept, but it's just basically, I'll put this on the board for you right now. Here we go. I had a tab, but I had to close it before, so sorry about that, right? The floating pawn structure is, okay, if these two pawns are here, and there's a king here, then the king cannot stop the pawn, right? You make the square. This is called the floating pawn rule, right? And it's in Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual. Three squares. So if they make a square and they hit the end of the board, the king cannot hold the pawns, and one of the pawns will queen, right? If I were to teach this, the first thing that I have to make sure that they understand is opposition. Then, from opposition, they need to know the square of the pawn, right? Because this ties into this. Give them some examples of those, and then once I do that and they understand it well enough, then I show them this pawn structure. Now, if they want to have a little bit of fun, maybe I'll throw pawn breakthroughs first. It just depends on my student, right? Because pawn breakthroughs can be amazing, and this can also tie into some pawn breakthrough themes. Right? And you break it down to the core elements first. If this pawn were not here, can the king catch the pawn? And then you show them an example when it doesn't work. Right? Let's say it's something like this, and he has opposing pawns. Let's say something like this. Right? Is this a draw? Is this a win? Can the king catch the pawn? But can the king catch the pawn this way? And what is the best move here, right? These pawns don't reach the end of the board, but these pawns do. And what does that mean? And how do we do it? Right? And how do we win? It's very important. It's very, very important. Right? You want to break things down and make it as simple as possible. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back. You also, during the lesson and even after the lesson, you want to keep your students thinking. You want to find ways for them to actively use concepts that you are teaching in class and have them do it over the chessboard. Most students, and this is It hurts to say this because I feel like they're not listening, but students are going to lose about 80% of what you teach them, right? As soon as they walk out the door, or as soon as they close that Zoom link or that Discord call that you have them, they're going to forget everything. And it's just fact. It happens. You know, and you have to find, like, if you're just lecturing them, they're going to forget a lot. But if you give them things that will keep their mind engaged and say, hey, I remember that puzzle. I remember that that amazing mate in 5 tactic that we had. And then you give them homework on top of that, they're more likely to understand and to remember that topic, right? And as adults, they're like, wait, homework again? No. But you can make the homework fun, right? Who doesn't love smother mating people? Right? That's a joy I enjoy even now in tournaments. If I can do a smother mates to somebody, or Anastasia's mate, like, I'm on top of the world. Or if I get a Bowden's mate, that would be amazing as well. Right? But you always have to engage the student. You have to keep them thinking. Make them want to learn. This is the thing. You have to put enough passion into your work and into your teaching and prep that you're going to make them want to learn more. Okay? And if you have a class, and this is for people who have a classroom, consider using some classroom time for activities. Right? And say, okay, I'm going to lecture you for maybe 20 minutes, but maybe the next 15 minutes, or maybe the next 10 minutes, just do these puzzles and see who can get them the quickest. Right? Make it a game. And then if you do it fast enough, we go into playtime. And that's an effective, way to use your time. If it's a one-on-one lesson, then what you can do is you can teach, have an activity, and then if they really get it, give them a harder puzzle for them to really focus on. And really, make them rack their brain around it. And the one thing, the next thing is to be patient. And being patient is something that we learn as chess players, that we have to be patient. But sometimes when our student doesn't get it, and you've explained it in every way you think possible, just remember that people don't learn the same way. People learn in different ways, and it's a beautiful thing. The process of acquisition is a beautiful thing. And I always look for it, and I challenge you to look for it. I challenge you to look for that aha moment and making it possible in every single one of your lessons, right? Because if that student really didn't get it, then you really have to go back and make it even simpler. And that concept, right? You think that concept might be as simple as possible, right? Like a pawn moves 1 square and then it moves 2, in a starting position. And like, how do you not get that? The pawn captures diagonally, right? Well, yeah, but we can make it simpler than that, right? Let's just take these arrows off the board. What if we have a name for it? Yeah, pawns move 1 square, and they move 2 squares when they start. Great. But for people who haven't played chess before, what about this example? The pawns start at home. Home is on the 2nd rank and on the 7th rank. Pawns can move 1 square, or if they're at home, they can move 2 squares. But if they're not at home, they can only move 1 square. And they can only capture diagonally. If they have another piece in front of them, they are stuck. Simple. And then we can go into promotion and stuff like that and make it, more pawn stuff. But very simple. give names to some things. You might have to invent some names that work with your students. I love this example. I love this home example. I've never heard anybody else use it, but if somebody has, speak up. Leave a comment down below. Or to the side, wherever your comment section is. And yeah, I mean, simple things like that will make your teaching easier, and it's also easy for the student to remember. Why? Well, I think it has to deal with the way our brain stores things. Yes, of course, we can just say E4, E5, right? And this is great, but what if we had like E4, C5, Knight F3, D6, D4, and something like this, right? And automatically our brain goes dragon. We're associating a name. And this makes it easy for us to remember this kind of structure. Aha. Right? So using names as a mnemonic, or, obviously a mnemonic, is, I think, a very effective way to teach as well. Anyways, I digress. But you have to think outside the box and be very patient with your students. Tell them that it's fine for them to make mistakes if they can learn from them. Learning can be hard work even for the most motivated students. And please, instead of blaming your students when things don't go right, consider maybe ways that you can change your approach to reach them more effectively. Also, be patient with yourself, because teaching can be very frustrating and difficult at times. Give yourself the same opportunities you're giving them to make mistakes and learn from them. Now, it's also very, very important for an effective teacher to be fair. And what do I mean by that? Fair, consider what it would be like to be one of your students. I think most of us can agree that we would love an instructor or a coach who set clear expectations, applied them consistently, and can admit when they're wrong. Sometimes that's a bit hard for me. I'm like, wait, I was wrong? But, you have to admit it at times and not make excuses. Once you have set standards, and I like setting standards right in the beginning. I like to tell people what they're getting into before they get into it, so that they feel prepared. If you let your student know what you're expecting of them at first, then they know that you're holding them to that standard, and they can guide themselves properly. Okay? And also, like, if you don't follow through with what you said, you're going to lose credibility, and that's very hard to get back. So one of the most famous sayings that I love to say, do what you say you're going to do. Okay? If you're not going to do it, then don't say it. And another thing is, if you make a mistake or don't know an answer to the question, acknowledge that you made a mistake or you don't know the answer to the question. It is way better to tell them, hey, I don't know, but I will get back to you, rather than ignore it or lie about it, say you know it, and then teach something completely wrong. Say, hey, I actually don't know how to teach this right now, or I don't know too much about this topic, but I will research for you and I will get back to you when I can give you what you asked for, or when I can answer this question. It's very, very important for that. Okay, so I am also let me just make sure that I am keeping up with the chat as well. Um, Yep. Okay, yeah, this is for teaching teachers how to teach. Exactly. This is teaching coaches how to teach, and also it can be a lesson in teaching teachers how to be more effective teachers. Right. So let's keep it going. So some of the topics that I want to talk about today are the value of your time and your students' time, making the lesson meaningful to the student, how to effectively lesson plan, and at the end of everything, I kind of want a Q&A session for us. Um, so if you have any questions, you can ask them at the end of the show, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can put it in the comment section down below. Or if you just want to explain to me how I'm saying Devretsky wrong, then please go ahead and do so. That will also be entertaining as well, having me say all these chess players' names. So, the first topic, the value of your time and your students' time. So I like to set a precedent where I am going to work for the student, right? They are coming to me to learn. So I am going to do my very best to help them learn. And I am going to work hard. But I also expect them to do the homework that I'm doing. The homework that I'm giving them. And if we're not able to cover everything, and I do assign it as more homework to be able to do all of it, because I'm only working in your best interest, right? I'm not doing it to be mean, right? That said, how much should you work behind the scenes to then give a great lesson? And that all comes down to experience, teaching, and being able to gather resources, sifting through games and because at first, when you first start teaching, you might not know what games you're supposed to reference or what you're supposed to teach at first. And I think chess.com has an amazing and beautiful chess curriculum for schools. So you can literally just look at that and say, this is the order that they teach them in. But I mean, as chess players, we can kind of guess, like, okay, we want pieces first, and then, maybe some ideas, some special moves, opening principles, and stuff like that. But they have a great curriculum that they have available for everyone. And there are also a lot of curriculums online available. I'm not saying to copy that, but I'm saying that you can get inspiration and learn a lot from them. So I would say at first it might take you an hour and a half to plan a good lesson, an hour and a half to 2 hours. But just know that once you do that, you understand the process of creating an effective lesson plan, right? And it's going to expedite the way you do other things, right? Because now you have experience planning, right? So you don't have to say, okay, what do I need here? What do I need there? Once you do it once and you do it again, that planning might take an hour, might take 45 minutes, might take 30 minutes if you're really resourceful and can find what you need very quickly, right? I would say in the beginning, when you're first starting off as a coach, I think it would be closer to an hour and a half to prep for your student or more. But as you get better and better, it might be closer to an hour, maybe even 45 to 30 to 45 minutes. Well, as you get a bit better in preparing for your students and your students' needs. Making the lesson meaningful to the student. So I'm going to tell you guys how I got chess lessons all of my life, and how I decided to kind of break from the mold and do chess lessons differently. So all of my life, whether it was an expert, well, my first coach was 1800, 2000, and I am from Ukraine. I forgot his rating. I think it was like 2300, 2500. I forgot Sergei Kudrin's rating, but I had like an FM, and so across many coaches across the board who have taught me, have all taught me, hey, bring your games, and I'm going to discuss one topic with you, which is good. One topic is great, but I always felt like it wasn't for me. I never felt like I was learning it. It would be practical for my chess. That was what was always lacking for me. For other students, I mean, they're great coaches and they explained the material extremely well, and it was very clear. And I have a lot of respect for what they do. But for me, it just didn't work. So when I became a coach, I said, hey, I want to look at all of your games. Give me your notebook or your notation sheets, because I want to see all of your games. I want to see what the consistent pattern of why you're losing or how you're winning. And I want to make your winning plans better. And I want to fix the reasons why you're losing. Right? I take that as a coach and I say, hey, I am going to do all this pre-work first so that I can understand you. And then convert it into a lesson that's meaningful for you, right? So now I'm going to tell you how to make it meaningful for the student. I would say for an effective teacher and for somebody who can just go through somebody's games, it might take you 15 minutes, 20 minutes to identify what's wrong with your student's game. And it's only 20 minutes. But that can make a world of a difference for your lessons. What does that mean? Right? Why is that interesting? Well, it's very interesting because I think if instead of teaching in a very structured, structure is maybe not the right word, but in a very rigid manner where I have to teach my students, all of my students this, and then they're going to be a strong player. I feel like if you can work on what's going wrong in their games without them having to waste time in class to show it to you, right? Because I can literally go through a game in my head if I have the notation sheet, right? And I can say, okay, this is where they went wrong, right? Or if we're on chess.com and I can go into your archive, I can look at your games and say, oh, you have a consistent pattern of doing this, and how long does this really take? For me, I love doing the 100 game rule. I love to see your patterns over 100 games. That's just me. I am too much and I obsess. But I love really deep diving. But maybe 5 games, maybe 10 games, right? And then you can see consistent patterns and let's fix them and make a lesson for that. Takes maybe 15 minutes of your time to look through those games. But now you have exactly what to plan for, and it's going to be amazing for your students. So I actually went into how to effectively lesson plan, but that's how to do it. How do you teach difficult and new ideas right? We kind of went on that before, but you really have to break things down to their common denominator, or to the most common denominator. Like, you have to go really low. And like, if you were talking to like a 4-year-old kid or 4-year-old student, you have to go extremely slow, be patient, and give them bites of it. And it's up to you, the teacher, to learn how to separate it correctly, right? So I would say, if you're trying to teach a new topic or a difficult topic, say, hey, is this language, or is this topic easy enough for a fourth grader for a 4-year-old to understand it? Because maybe they might be strong enough to get it, but if they really understand it, then it's going to provide a lot of value in their games. Okay. So I'm also going to just make sure that I take some questions as well. Sorry for the rambling. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for the subs. I appreciate you. Okay. And so let's keep it going. Thank you so much for the sub. I really appreciate it. So what is your learning style? And understanding the learning styles are amazing to being an effective teacher. And sometimes we're teaching in an auditory kind of style where we'll just say something, right? And not show. Some students are visual learners and stuff like that. And just being aware of how you teach and your tendencies will help you recognize similar or different preferences in your students and react accordingly. I mean, there are some tests, right? Like the Myers-Briggs test for like personality and stuff like that. And we have some visual, auditory, and tactile differences. But there are also like other documented differences in how people problem solve. And if you just can take a slight detour and not only do chess, but if you can see what your learning style is and what learning styles there are, then you can try to use resources that cover all of these learning styles so you can bridge the gap. Because maybe in one place they might be a visual learner, but in another place they might be an auditory learner, or they might be a tactile learner in another place, for so that they can really understand everything, and you can completely teach them and cover all bases without them saying, hey, I don't really get it, because you've already catered to them. I love I think it's called the Harvard way of writing an argumentative essay. And you guys are going to chew me out in the comment section down below because I don't know, but I think it is where you present their argument, their best argument in your essay, and counteract that. I love doing that with teaching. It's the best. You take the most common questions like that they're going to ask, right? And you answer it before they have a chance to ask. Right? Like, let's take opposition, for example. You do this, you're an odd number of squares away. And what's an odd number of squares away? Well, 1, 3, 5. Right? You already answered them before they even had a chance to ask it, because that was probably the first question on their mind. Wait, what does he mean? And do you go into opposition? And this means you're in opposition, and you explain that first. Explain the difference between distant, right? Into direct and distant opposition. As you're teaching, you'll understand what questions come up frequently, and you can just, boom, you put that right into your lesson plan. You put that right into your lesson, and it's going to just make you better as a teacher, because they're going to just learn super quick. And for those of us not using technology, come on. There are a bunch of resources on the internet for you guys. I mean, we're on one of the best resources right now. We're, YouTube, chess.com. Like, it's great. Diamond membership? What? Have you not seen all the lessons and all the, different things that you can do on chess.com? It's amazing, actually. Because what I love to do, when I do have a student, is I love to focus on tactics. I think tactics really make a difference because we're working with pattern recognition. And depending on the rating of the student and how much free time they have, I like to assign, 10 tactics a day where they can get their feet wet. And if, they're doing tactics and they're doing it well enough, then I like to do maybe 50 tactics a day. That's what I used to do. But my sweet spot is about 25 tactics. But I'd rather them do 10 tactics and get 100% right than do 50 tactics and get 50% wrong. Right? Because 50% wrong means you don't really understand what happened in half of those tactics. Right? So if they're getting 10 consistently right at 100% or 90 to 100%, then move on, maybe do 15, 20. Right? Aim for that 90% to 100% benchmark, because that means you understand what you're doing. I always take it as, a doctor, and this is not as extreme as a doctor. Playing chess is not as extreme as being a doctor, like being in the surgery room, though. But you usually want to try to be right 90%, 100% of the time. And we're striving always for 100% because you can help people. In the same case here, we're going for practical use. And if we're right 90 to 100% of the time on the chessboard, our rating is going to shoot up. It is what it is. So yeah, use technology to your advantage. Okay. So, any questions about that? I'll go ahead and answer some. If not, then I will continue. I have another amazing topic, and then we can break for more Q&A. So, let's see. Anyone else love chess? Well, there we go. Yes, I am absolutely in love with chess. Absolutely in love with chess. And I love teaching it. I love teaching chess. It's one of the best things that I've done with my life, I think. Okay, so let's keep it going. What is what does a good teacher do? What is teaching? Teaching is fundamentally a process that includes planning, implementation, evaluation, and revision. Right? Planning and teaching a class are basically familiar ideas to instructors, right? You have to plan. But some things that a lot of teachers misunderstand or just honestly overlook or just don't do at all is evaluating and revising what they do. Right? Without classroom assessments or some other means of getting feedback, and I love feedback from my students. I always tell them did you understand everything? I try to take a few minutes at the end, did you understand everything? Is everything good? I know that they understood everything, but maybe there's a concept that they really didn't understand well. And I love to look over my lesson plans and check them, right? Because it's surprisingly easy to misunderstand whether a particular teaching method or strategy was effective, right? A teacher can create an environment of almost mutual trust and respect by taking or even relying on student feedback. And students can kind of be a valuable resource for verifying whether the class's methods are working or aren't working. Self-examination can be hard to do almost, because sometimes we're a little bit biased, right, about our teaching, because I would love to say, hey, I am the best teacher in the world. But honestly, there's always somebody better, and there's always the chance to get better, right? You can always teach something better. You can always do something better. But if you do self-examination plus rely on the feedback from your students, you will have the resources to improve, or you have the keys to improve your teaching. Right? So we already went over planning, right? Just planning, do like maybe if it's just a one lesson, it's a one lesson. If you have to plan a curriculum for your school, cool, but make sure that you do plan, right? They say that if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. So make sure that over the course you set realistic and fair goals for your students. And, have day-to-day goals, right? I love this one thing I read in a book where it said, okay, what do you want to achieve in 1 year, right? Set a goal for 1 year. Then, what can you do in 6 months, right? So you do that end goal and you divide it by 2. 6 months, 6 months, right? Then, what can you do in a month? Okay, right? You just break those 6 months, or those 2 6 months block, into separate 6 months. Then, what can you do in a week? What can you do in a day? And then what can you do right now? That's probably one of the best advice I got for life, but I've learned to incorporate that into my lesson planning and my curriculums. Because it's really just that simple. Just planning that 12 months can be, or depending on your school sessions, maybe 8 months or 9 months. But if you plan that way, you have an end goal, but then you have goals throughout the semester and throughout the school year. And if you don't teach in the schools, you have a way to teach your student for a very long time as well. You can set like, hey, I want to get them to this level and this is what they need for this level. Right? Now, assessment's a big part of becoming a more effective teacher. And to really understand whether you are teaching effectively and your students are learning effectively, it is crucial that you actively is the key word here, and regularly assess what your students have learned. If you're able to solicit meaningful feedback from your students and maybe like yourself as well on a regular basis, you can modify and improve your teaching strategies. The assessments don't have to be complex. You don't have to go over the top in your assessment. You just have to focus on the assessment and say, hey, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And how can I fix what I did wrong? And how can I do what I did right better? Right? And then the biggest thing is implementation. You have a plan, you revised well, you did all the assessments. But now what? Now it's time to implement a plan into becoming a better teacher. And although most of the work happens in the first 3, right? The planning, the revision, the assessment, many ideas are not implemented because it's just, I'm going to just say it right here. It's honestly easier to keep doing the same thing. If you know what works, right? There's a common saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right? That's the common saying. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's easy to just keep doing the same thing. But great ideas, great things aren't implemented because it's just easier to just keep doing the same thing. And kind of a sad fact, but it's true. So don't be afraid of having new ideas or trying something new, because it might fail, but we can learn from failure. We can learn from our mistakes, right? And if something hasn't been working right, why not change what you're doing or Why not do something new? If you know that this was a weak point in your lessons, or this was a lesson that really didn't go over well, maybe you know the material that you have to teach. But unless you're willing to change and experiment, you are going to kind of find it difficult to improve your teaching skills and your skill set. Right? So and any any questions any questions so far? I mean, I can keep going, but we're at that point where you can bombard me with questions. And again, this will be on YouTube and stuff, and you can rewatch it, and I'll have somebody edit it so I can take some of the yums out and stuff like that. But yep. And so we do have somebody here in the Twitch TV chat, and I love to have feedback and have discussions. But people think they have preferences, but most studies show the difference in learning amount doesn't vary with style. So maybe it feels better to someone, but it doesn't change the outcome. So I guess there is some validity in it from a preference perspective, but it doesn't change the learning outcome of knowledge comprehension. Now, so you are, and these, I'm just gonna do it from my experience. I feel like you are right, but there are just some people who really love touching pieces and learning that way, right? And also, age has a big. Okay, so like I'll give one example, right? The way I would teach a kindergarten class isn't the same way that I would teach an 8th grade class. And a lot of them are tactile learners. They love to just touch pieces. They're like, oh, a bishop. You know, and so my name is, I have them calling me Mr. Charlie, but whatever, Mr. JT for your kids. But Mr. Charlie, Mr. Charlie. And they get excited about chess because they finally know and understand what that bishop is. And for that case, there can be tactile learners, but like, you know, I can go to an 8th grade class and I can teach them only with, you know, like a digital chessboard. And they can be, you know, visual learners or auditory learners. You know, when do you think a coach is needed? Beginner here. That's actually a very, very, very good question. So to all of you people who are looking for coaching, I think a coach should be used when you have exhausted all of your resources and are stuck, or you're looking to get ahead quickly. What does that mean? I love the idea that everything in the world right now you can learn for free. Go on YouTube. Different platforms. Chess.com has a beautiful platform that you can play and learn for free. Right? But if you're stuck and you want to get better, then you can enlist the help of somebody who's better than you to break it down for you and make things just make sense. Because you cannot find something that you're not looking for. Does that make sense? I'll repeat that one more time. You cannot find something that you are not looking for. Right? Basically, what that means is you're playing in the same way over and over and over again until you kind of figure out that it doesn't work, but you don't know what to look for. A coach will help you understand what you're supposed to look for in the position, or in the opening, or in the end game, or, you know, psychological tricks to remember stuff, right? One of my most famous things, I think, you know, that I've said over the course of time is PP on the PP. Put pressure on the pin piece. I think that became a meme on Twitter, and at least in my channel, twitch.tv/Japanesetutor. Shameless plug there. But put pressure on the pin piece, right? Without a coach, you can understand that concept, but if you're not looking for it, then you're going to miss it. Right? Thinking about dark squares and good bishops, bad pieces versus good pieces. When should I trade? When not to trade? If the king's exposed, should I trade my queens? Right? If the position is locked, should I trade my bishops? Can it be unlocked soon? A coach will help you with all of that. But I only recommend that you get coaches once you have exhausted your resources in learning by yourself. Here's another question. What areas of chess do you recommend people sub 1,000 learn to improve their game overall? What kind of mistakes do you see beginner players make the most? Okay. If you kind of want the roadmap to like chess improvement, I made a video on YouTube. So it's, if you just search me Japanesetutor, one word. I give you the kind of roadmap that you can do from like 300 or 100 to master almost. And to answer your question, tactics, pattern recognition is the key thing that will make you better. And then after you learn the pieces and stuff like that, I really would suggest that you go into the end game. The end game is key for me before the opening. Openings are great, and there are a lot of opening traps, and they're fun. And when you catch somebody in an opening trap, it's amazing and it's exciting. But the end game is the key starting place for me, because it teaches you how to calculate. Right? It teaches you, right, that one mistake can cost you the whole game. In a winning endgame, right? Let's just put a position on the board. White's a move. In a winning endgame, making one bad move can end up in a draw. And you learn that very quickly. And you learn how to calculate from the end game. Right? You learn to say, oh, okay, I can maneuver my pieces. I can do this. Right? But if you make one mistake, let's just put legal moves on here. Now we have no chance to win. And this doesn't even seem like a mistake. But it's because we're not calculating. It's not because we're basically not understanding the position. Right? And these techniques of opposition and getting the king to center and only playing on these 3 files when you have the pawn, right? The idea of the red carpet technique, and that's a concept I came up with. You can steal it. Go ahead. I give you full permission to use it. Why do I call it the red carpet technique? Because we're looking for this to become a queen. So, right? Make the king do all the work at first. The king's so lazy in the beginning of the game, and all the other pieces do work. When it comes down to an end game, the king has to work. Right? You learn and you teach them how to use the king first. Right? And let's just say we just go crazy and, here. Bam, and now we have the red carpet. Right? Just a few steps. And we make a queen. This is called the red carpet technique. This is at least what because it was just the easiest way to have them remember it. The red carpet technique. This is the golden position. No matter whose turn it is to move, it's a win. And then red carpet technique. Right? They can visualize it and they're like, oh, you're so right. And people can get excited from it. And, again, I live for that aha moment. Like, why is something called something? So, how to practice tactics. Go on chess.com. They give you tactics that you can do every day. If you have their memberships, then you can do unlimited tactics, and I really recommend doing so. You know, um, I would say if you really want to improve, do 10 to 20 tactics and try to get a 90% accuracy in your tactics rating. And there are a lot of great books and sites for tactics. But I really like chess.com for tactics, and I'm going to be recommending them. And yeah, when something just clicks, it's just the best feeling in the world, because you can see it in their face, right? And then when you discover that you just taught something extremely well, then it clicks for you as a teacher as well. How long should someone spend on a single tactic? Well, I would say try to really understand the tactic and take 5 minutes. But here, I'll show you a fun tactic. I wasn't planning on showing you a fun tactic because this is more about This is more about teaching rather than tactics. But okay, we can go over that. Here, you can use this for one of your students. If they said, "Oh, mates and two are boring," it's not fun. Well, you can give them this tactic and have them have fun with it. Because chess is a beautiful game, and once you learn the ins and outs and all the beginning steps, then chess just turns into this beautiful game that chess turns into this almost beautiful game. And you can probably see it up here, but you can give them this tactic. When mates and two get too boring, you can give them one of these. Say, "Hey, mate and two, you solve it." Obviously, there's other ways to win, but the beautiful queen h7, threatening mate here, and also threatening the mate here. And this might take you 10 minutes to solve. This might take you 15 minutes to solve. Yeah, 100 Games You Must Know is a great book. But you want to really spend time understanding the position, right? Because there are things that this in itself took me maybe 2 minutes to understand. But let me show you a different position, and we're not only talking about tactics, we're talking about puzzles. This is in Dvoretsky's Endgame Manual. And this position took me 1 hour to finish. Maybe that's just me, but I couldn't get over that king e1, the distant opposition, didn't work. Right? I really couldn't understand why king e1 just didn't work when I was doing it over the board. And I was racking my brain trying to make king e1 work when I didn't fully understand the idea of opposition and the major line. And it's fine to admit that, but it's not fine to just say I don't get it, or to not try to get it as a coach. And for those of you trying to understand this position, the idea is that king e1 is distant opposition, right? Because they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares. It's an odd number away from the king. But the opposition, distant opposition, does not matter when you cannot convert it to close opposition, right? And so that means that opposition elsewhere is more critical, and the critical opposition is going to be on the F file. So that means that we have to make use of the G file, and whenever black goes to the F file, then we take opposition there and we win. right? So let's go back, and I'm loving all of these questions. So I really appreciate you asking away. So let's just take one from what is the typical demographic of my students? Well, I teach in the New York City school system, so I have many different students. So, my public school students, or when I go into schools, are all ages and all. Well, mostly I do middle school. I have done elementary before, but this year, well, yeah, this year because of the pandemic, I just have been doing middle school. But yeah, all ages, K through 8, basically is my bread and butter. And for private students, it's anywhere from 8 years old to, I think my oldest student is 54. I think I have to ask him. But that's the usual demographic. So it's like it's a game that's enjoyed, wide and far, and it's such a beautiful game because it connects us all. Because we can all appreciate the amount of work it took to get good. Right? We know that somebody who's 2300, 2400 put in a lot of work to get there. Right? The same amount of work. Like 1600 is a great player, and they put in a lot of time and effort to get to that rating. 1000 is a great milestone as well. You put in a lot of work. Right? And chess is great because we can appreciate how much work somebody put into their chess. Do you say that playing 15 minutes is better than 3 minutes? I'm still a 1100 player and have something to learn. I think that longer time controls are better for your chess. Now, I say that, but I also agree that chess is evolving, right? And I will be one to say that I do think that bullet is great in its own respect for just enjoying the game. Okay? Bullet is great for that. If you really want to learn something and want quality stuff to bring to a coach or to analyze yourself, then I would honestly play a longer time control because those are your thoughts and not just time rush thoughts. But if you want to have fun, then shorter time controls are where it's at because you get to make, split second decisions. It almost becomes a game of CSGO if you find that interesting. Are time goals for chess.com tactics realistic? Most puzzles can be solved. Yeah. But in some cases, Magnetic Spark. And so what he's saying is, are time goals for chess.com tactics realistic? Most of the puzzles should be solved in like 10 seconds according to them. Well, I believe that if you really don't understand what's going on, take your time. You can always improve on speed later. But just take your time and really understand it. Okay, so we have a question, does somebody work on tactics first? Does somebody work heavy? Do they go heavy on tactics? Or do you go over opening strategy? And I think that answer, I'm always going to say tactics, but why not just do tactics while you do opening strategy? I mean, you're at a level that it makes sense to do both. What would you do to improve your game as fast as possible? Tactics every single day and set aside an hour to 2 hours a day to learn chess and to focus on chess. And also, this is one of my key secrets that I'm going to share with you. One of the tricks of the trade for teaching chess is that you want to do endgames when you are tired of studying. Why? Because when you do endgame, when do endgames happen? They happen at the end of the game when you're tired. So it makes sense that you should put yourself in the condition that you're tired from studying and from looking at chess to do endgame stuff. Now, of course, look over it and do it often and more often, and whatever. But also do it when you're tired. All right, let's keep going. Yeah. Started playing chess in June, and you finally beat a friend of yours. Nice. Congratulations. And I'm loving the chess community right now because we're having such amazing people join us. So if you're new to the chess community, welcome. And hopefully some of the things that I said before really will help you in the future improve as a teacher and as a student of the game, right? I have this thing where I always say I've also heard it, but you learn better what you teach, right? You learn better what you teach. Why is that? Because honestly, you have to make sense of things before you teach them. Before you're able to even explain it to somebody, you have to make sense of it in your head first. And that helps you understand it better. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Or if it doesn't make sense, let me know. Because I can explain it in a different way. Right? And also, feel free, like, if you like any of the puzzles that I've shown or any of the things that I've said, feel free to use it, honestly, because it is my mission to make more effective chess teachers, because chess changed my life. And it's just an amazing game, and I feel like if we each one teach one, that the world will be a better place. So let's keep it going. So I know in this time, right, we're living in like kind of uncertain times here. But this is more for the classroom teacher. This is somebody who's teaching multiple people, maybe giving a lecture, maybe starting up a chess club, right? You have to know your space, okay? Understand what can go wrong. I love these sayings because they just make my work easy. Remember, the same way that mnemonics work and acronyms work, sayings also work. What can go wrong will go wrong. So look for points where things can go wrong and prevent them. Just rule them out before they're able to happen. Check the classroom space. Know where your classroom is located. Give yourself ample time to prepare. Look at the lighting. Is it dimmable? Is it not? Is a light broken? Maybe you need to call in maintenance. The arrangement of the seats. Is it conducive to a learning environment? Right? Are you going with the old-fashioned Prussian school model? Who made the Prussian school model? Horace Mann. I forgot. I think it was 1870. Somebody can get me. I'm pretty sure it's like in the 1870s, right? The arrangement of the seats, the size of the room. If you plan to use a digital board or other audio and visual equipment, make sure that it works properly, especially if you're using computers for most of it. These are old, but like if you have a video projector, but I don't think anybody, I had to use it once actually, made life difficult, right? And just remember that first impressions count. So you need to set the tone of the class from day one, minute one, the first 10 seconds. because those 10 seconds are probably the most important thing of the whole year. That 10 seconds to that first minute to the first 5 minutes of you engaging with your class is really going to set a huge precedence in the classroom. So make sure that you knock it out of the park. Set your expectations. And I, even in classrooms where they're like, oh, these are difficult students, these are like, this is the worst class. I hated that terminology because I feel like there are no bad students. People just need a little bit more love and a little bit more attention. Right? And so my trick is that you fairly give them just tell them what you expect from them and tell them exactly what you're going to do. Right? Do not promise anything that you cannot complete, and know what you can and cannot do before you give out your expectations. Okay? So that said, teachers have different styles, but for me, I love smiling. It's just me. So smile, relax. This is words of advice and words of wisdom from JT. Consider how you dress. That's huge. Your appearance is going to make a huge impression on your students. Obviously, dress comfortably. If you're wearing a getup from the 1700s, then much luck to you. But you have to remember that you are in front of them. So it's a position of responsibility and of leadership. And if you're out there in shorts and a Mike Bibby jersey, it's not the best. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just not the best for a first impression. Maybe, on a certain day when it's like, dress crazy day, then, have fun with your students. So, I would set high standards, but achievable. You can learn how to be flexible a little bit. But you can only do that if you set the expectation high and you come down a bit. Because if you set it low and you try to go up, it becomes a little bit harder for the students to be like, oh, this is what you said we're supposed to do. And we're not doing it. What is wrong here? You told me one thing and now you're saying another. Right? But if you can lessen the work a little bit, they're going to be like, oh, he cares for us. He understands. Aha. Right? And one of the key things here is really important. And this is as important as the first impression. Get to know your students by name. And this is, private lessons and for group lessons, chess club lessons, lectures. Get to know your students by name. If it's going to be a repeat thing, right? Lectures can, if it's just a one-time lecture and you have different students, then okay, whatever. You have to know their names. But if it's a consistent group, then learn their names. And using a student's name makes them feel like they're a part of the class, and also internally, it makes you feel recognized as a human being. If this class is small enough, then even in the beginning, you can ask them to introduce themselves. And maybe even give like one fun fact about them. One thing that everybody, that gets everybody's like, hey, I can speak some Japanese. They're like, what? Konnichiwa. Omae wa mo shindeiru. Right? But, you can say a fun fact about yourself as well. I love to set precedents right on the whiteboard, on the blackboard behind me, or maybe it's a computer screen like the smart boards, and you can set a list of your expectations. And I like to give it to them for them to read it and talk about it and ask, are these fair? Is it fair for you? it's it's me asking them to evaluate my syllabus or what I'm trying to do, and asking them if it's fair and do you think we can do it in a year's time, or do you think we can do this by the end of this semester or the course, right? I like setting that precedent right in the beginning. This is works for older students, not so much the younger students, because they're like, oh, reading. I just read in my ELA class. But I do like to set that, like, hey, is this fair? This is what we're going to work on for the rest of the year. And do you find this fair? Is there anything that you guys want to adjust? Is there anything that you want to see? Is there anything that you want to do? So another thing is, please don't prepare in the last minute. Now you're like, oh, some preparation beats no preparation, but your students can sense it. Your students will sense it. They have this like amazing sixth sense. They're like, huh? Did you just like do this on the train, or did you just do this on the bike ride over? Did you do this in your car? Why don't you have enough experience with this? Why haven't you did this? You know, like minute preparation is, it just increases the teacher's nervousness about the topic. And students value when you really care about it and you can show that you care about it and not be nervous. Confidence is big in a lot of your life, and especially in teaching. If you feel confident when you teach, your students will sense that and they feel confident that they've learned something. And I'll take some more questions. So let's just start off over here. So I'm just going to go back. Here and search a little bit more. Oh, backward pawn. Yeah. Chess. If only chess was easy. First impressions matter, and last impressions last. That's a good one. I might have to steal that one. Basically saying, make sure the people want to come back. Exactly. I like that a lot. I really try to make my class as engaging. Excuse me, I'm just gonna readjust here. As engaging as possible. I really want them to feel like they have learned something and the stuff that they learned is valuable to them, especially in chess. Dress up as Philidor. Yeah, definitely dress up as Philidor there. The topic is how to become a better and more effective chess coach. These tips help for my high school students' science class. Oh, wow. I'm glad. So any questions of what I just said or talked about, or any questions just in general? I mean, you had amazing questions before as well, so maybe you're exhausted from that. But I really would love to answer any of your questions now, because this time is for the Q&A. That said, I'll give you some time to talk, but my name is Japanesetutor. For those of you who tuned in late and didn't get my introduction, I have been teaching chess for about 13 years to over 5,000 students. I teach here on twitch.tv/Japanesetutor. Also, I teach on YouTube, where I have only chess lessons available. Well, not only, but I I put all the chess lessons that I do on stream, and I put them on YouTube where you can watch them for free, obviously. So make sure to go watch them if you want to get better at chess. And I can't believe that it's already been like an hour and 45 minutes. I feel like it's only been like 30 minutes. Like, I honestly, like, I thought it was like a 25-30 minute thing, and I don't know. It's amazing. So let's looking for some questions here. So you can't comprehend why someone would need a coach. Okay, let's take that question. Why does someone need a coach? And I'm going to say this right here. Some people, they don't need a coach. It depends on what you're going for. And if you're looking to get better in a short amount of time, a coach is probably the best thing that you can do. Time versus money aspect, right? If you have a little bit of, if you're willing to spend a little bit of money, then you can expedite and really like speed run your journey to becoming a better player, right? It's just going to save you a lot of time, especially if they're an effective coach. That said, not everyone needs a coach, and it depends on what your goals are for chess. Exactly, a coach can see where you need improvement. And if you're serious about improving, then a coach might be the thing. Now, can you improve without a coach? Yes, absolutely. There are amazing books, and there are amazing ways that you can just be better at chess. But for a lot of people, they don't really have that much time. And that's when a coach becomes useful. You still like my resting. Thank you. I appreciate it. Can you play chess without a coach? Yes. It's 16 pieces on each side. So 32 pieces in total with a chessboard. And that's all you need to play chess. Then the obvious question is, what if the pieces are the same color? Well then, you mark them. I actually had to do that in one of my classes. We drew faces on the white pieces, and so we had two sets of white pieces. We just drew faces on them and made it work. You know, you have to be creative. Instead of worrying about the problem, try to come up with a solution. An anti-blunder coach. Yep. So let's see if there are any more questions. And personally, I see. So this is a question for me personally. How much are my lessons? If you want, you can contact me on my Discord, and we can talk about it. Although this wasn't to promote my services. But I am a coach. I still do coach, and I love coaching, as you can see from from my almost an hour and a half, 2 hour show. I love coaching. I love getting better at coaching. I have gone to many seminars and paid a lot of money to try to get better at coaching. And sometimes the seminars, they don't make sense, but I like to learn what didn't make sense and fix it. And that has been very fruitful for me in the past years. I like coaches have candy in their That's a great one. Yeah. All right, so I guess we can go on to maybe the last thing. I didn't think that we would have so much time. I thought there would be a little bit more questions, but it's been great. I think people are understanding what I'm trying to talk about, and it's been valuable. Well, has it been valuable? Let me ask you. Instead of me saying it by myself, I have to self-assess myself. Has this been valuable to you so far? And have you learned anything that is going to be useful in your life, whether you're a teacher or not? Maybe you want to teach your little brother how to play piano. This can be used to teach your little brother how to play piano effectively. Or becoming a better chess coach. Hello. What is my highest rated student? He's 1900 at the moment. that is more of a chess question, but okay, I'll take that. How do you turn theory into practice? Well, you have to practice your theory. Simple as that, right? If it goes unused, then it's not worth it. I used to be a Japanese tutor, but not a Japanese coach. That would be funny. But I could be a Japanese coach, but I'm not Japanese. What do you do with a student who does not want to do their homework? This is a really good question. This is a really, really good question. So what do you do with a student who does not want to do their homework? Well, this is what you do. And I always tell them when they don't want to do their homework, hey, you are your own person. Okay? You are your own person. And what do you want to get better or do you not, right? Like, but we say that in a nice way, right? You're your own person and I cannot force you to do something that you do not want to do. That said, you have to understand what's going to happen here, right? If you want to be better at chess, then I do recommend doing the homework. It's only going to benefit you. But if you don't have time, then just understand that you are losing the opportunity to learn and to grow. Right? You're missing opportunities to grow, and that's only on you. Chess is a game that requires hard work, and you get out of the game what you put into the game. The amount of work you put into it is what you get out of it, right? Which is why the question is, oh, why aren't you a grandmaster Japanese tutor? I haven't put enough work in yet. To be honest with you, I haven't. And I'm very realistic with myself. I know that I have to put in more work. Right, but you can see the amount of work that somebody puts in. We need more teachers like you. No. We need better teachers than me. We need way better teachers than me. I'm but one guy who strives to be better. And I want future students to have better instruction and more motivated teachers than me. So I like your video on Roadmap to Chess Master on YouTube. Yeah, so that video has 10 books under it. And honestly, if you get those books and guide yourself, like you can literally become a very strong player in a very short amount of time. Just follow my recommendations. So I've been getting this question a lot here. So my rating, USCF is 2000, and my chess.com blitz rating, which is what I play on stream, is 2200. It's a little bit over 2200. Have you ever had a student who doesn't really like to play chess, but their parents are paying you to coach their kids? Yes. And I really dislike the fact that they're forcing their kids to do stuff, but that is also an opportunity for me to engage with that student and make chess fun for them. Sometimes they just hate, it's a board game. They like, why do I have this? I have my Switch. I have the PS5 at home. Like, why do I need to play chess? And for me, I take that as an opportunity to say, hey, look, you don't want to be here, right? Like, and we'll say this nicely, like, ask them why. Ask why they don't like playing chess. Be honest with them. Tell them to give you reasons, and just because it's not a good reason, and come up with a solution. For me, it's, hey, it's like, I had chess. Okay, let's give an example, right? I've had chess teachers before and chess coaches, but I never liked the lessons, and I never really liked my coaches, right? And one of the ways that I combat that, because I'm very confident in my chess teaching ability, is I say, hey, give me one chance. Let's have fun. And if you don't have fun, then we'll talk to your parents. And I'm not boasting about my skills, but that has 100% success rate. I'm very confident that I can make chess fun. And that is a key to teaching students and kids. You have to make it fun. If it's not fun, then it's not for them. You heard that chess helps with a lot of things. It's a lot of logic building and brain training. If a player is tilted after the first tournament game and can't perform, how do we help them? Ooh, that's a great one. And this is really good if they're starting, if they're like new to chess or new to chess tournaments, and they don't really like to experience defeat, and this is really their first time like practicing their skills. And this is what I will say to you. Okay. And please listen, this is a really good one that I like. You can only do your best. What we're expecting from you is that you do your best. If you have done that, then you are already a winner. If you have put your best foot forward and tried your best, that's it. Now, because we tell them this, now that you have done your best, let's make your best even better. So don't worry, go into the next round, do your best again. No matter the result, we have another 2, 3, 6 more games. Do your best. Because it is our job as a team, after this tournament, we're going to make you better. And you're going to come back and crush them. And then all this stress and all this anxiety kind of just leaves their body. And they're like, you're right. We're a team. Right? We are a team. You're my coach. I'm the student. Let's do this. Chess cookies, yes. Right? Does that make sense for all of you guys? Does that make sense? Encourage them. Encourage them to be a better them. So that was a great question. Thank you so much for asking. You can only, and if this is for yourself, and let's say you don't have a coach, how do you motivate yourself after you have lost the first round? Well then, same thing. People are only looking for your best. Obviously not your opponent. Your opponent is looking for you to make a mistake. But if I played my best and I got outplayed, I'm happy with my game. If I played my absolute best and I got destroyed, that was my best. But then I have to learn how to be better. I have to take that next step and say, hey, how do I become better at this game? What did I miss? Right? What did I miss? What did I do wrong? Does that make sense or no? Tell me if it doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense, we'll go over it again.